Okay, welcome to the portion of Beshalach פרעה. ויהי בשלח פרעה את העם, ולא נחם אלוהים דרך ארץ פלישתים. And so this is the portion where, the whole story of exile, the Israelites, Pharaoh, the 10 plagues. So that's the Hollywood story. When we read what the Zohar has to tell us, to share with us about the secrets that are within the literal story that we wouldn't be able to really decipher if we were just to read the story. The story certainly has its lessons and, morals and whatnot. But very often, if not most of the time, the literal story is never really the message that was meant to be conveyed to humanity. And so we're going to see it here. ויהי בשלח פרעה וגומר. רבי שמעון פתח תפילה לחבקוק הנביא. And so Rabbi Shimon, who is the author of the Zohar, is opening the discussion about, the whole story about Pharaoh who's finally letting the Israelites go. And this is how it starts. And you'll see it has nothing to do with the story, but certainly has to do something with the story. רבי שמעון פתח תפילה לחבקוק הנביא על שיגיונות. And so he talks about the different prophets that played a humongous role in being miracle makers for humanity. And so the first one that Rabbi Shimon is talking about is Habakkuk, who is well known when you're traveling in Israel and you're going to the different energy sites. You are introduced to different grave sites that you, as a pilgrimage, I hope I'm saying this right, where people, throughout the year, they go visiting those different sites to connect to the energy, to the miracle making of that specific individual. And by the way, this is not only pertaining to the Bible. Those are people from the Bible. Those are people from, the time of Moses, from the time of Aaron, and from the time of whatnot that we read in the Bible. But throughout the history of mankind, there are other people that are playing a role, energy role. And we see this in Islam, we see this in Christianity, where there are energy centers around the world that people go in pilgrimage, and they go to connect to positive energy, the energy of soulmate, the energy of healing. I have a friend who, when he was 19 years old, he had a car accident and became tetraplegic. So he wasn't able to basically do anything. And for maybe like a couple of years that I was still in the south of France, I was driving him around and I was going a little bit everywhere. We were going places, Italy, Spain, whatever, like just anything like to basically distract his mind. He was a very joyful and a happy human being, partying, drawing, all kind of people like a magnet. People knew him as, like just as a benefactor. And he was like so charitable and good-hearted. So it was very dramatic when it happened to him. But anyway, I did whatever I could. And in one of our trips, we went to, now I need to remember the name. What was that name? Lourdes. So I don't know how you say it in English or, with the English accent. Lourdes. So you spell it Lourdes. And so I don't know how you would pronounce it, but anyway, take it home. That is basically one of the Christian sites in France where people flock there from around the world to connect to the energy of miracles, because it is a well-known site, for Christians. And there are a few sites like this in the world for Christians, the same as there are sites like this for Muslim, and there are sites like this for Buddhist followers who are, it's almost like a part of their philosophy, part of their religion, to connect to their ancestors. And so, this is also where we get it from, from the Bible, that, like in the time of Moses, in the time of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, we know of all those stories that Caleb and Joshua, when they were sent as spies into Israel, Joshua was blessed by Moses, so he didn't have to worry about any danger or any threat, because he was protected by this blessing. But then Caleb ben Yefuneh didn't merit, didn't receive that blessing. But the way that he got his protection is that he ran to the righteous site, that is the cave of Machpelah today in Hebron, where is buried Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Sarah, and he went to seek refuge there. And we learn from the Zohar, what is the connection with Caleb? Why would he run to that site to receive protection? And we learn that from the Zohar and from the writings of the Ari, that Caleb ben Yefuneh is a reincarnation of the servant of Abraham. And so this is why for the servant of Abraham to have like such a great connection with him in his living, and as an incarnation of Caleb ben Yefuneh, there was a spiritual soul affinity. Spiritual soul affinity, we can easily understand it in our layman terms, where in our life, we can basically connect to some people naturally, and to some other people, it can be a little bit more challenging to connect to. That's what we call a soul connection. So we can have a soul connection, or we can have a soul disconnection, right? And by the way, this doesn't have to be like with friends or a boss or a neighbor where we can see it, a soul connection or a soul disconnection. We can see it like within like the same household. You can have, one parent that has an amazing connection, like natural, genuine, organic connection with one of the kids, and then he has like another 3 or 5 kids, and they're like just but with one of them, everybody would know. Like I had a discussion yesterday, don't say anything. I had a discussion yesterday with Rebecca, my wife, about, why did she get like this engagement ring from her grandmother? And she said, well, everybody knew that I was the favorite. So I got that very special gift. And by the way, we don't ever say it, right? Like if you're asking a parent, who's your favorite? They would say, oh, there is no such a thing. But there is such a thing, and it's okay. We call this soul connection. We don't call it, like I don't love my kid. I love this kid more. It has nothing to do like with the emotional, like the heart, like the sentiments. It has to do with the soul. And the same went with Joseph. Everybody knows, and it's written in the Zohar and in the Bible, that the favorite of Jacob was Joseph. So it doesn't mean that he didn't like his older children, but there was an affinity. What kind of affinity are we talking about? And the kind of affinity is that we know that Joseph represents the central column of Yesod in the tree of life, and Jacob represents the central column of Tiferet. The rest of his kids were either right column or left column. It doesn't mean good or bad, it's just a polarity of energy. And so it doesn't mean that you don't love the right column kids or the left column kids. It just means that you're more in affinity, in a soul connection. So this doesn't mean that, don't take this as in the wrong way to say that it's okay to love one child more than another. It has nothing to do with that. It's more about like the question of affinity and the explanation that, like you can, like a question mark, like what did I do to this person that this person despises me naturally? Like this person makes no effort and she's just being mean to me. I've never done anything to this person. And very often it has nothing to do with you doing anything. Maybe, by the way, maybe it just means that the person is just evil or mean or stupid, excuse my French, but also can mean that there is a soul connection or a soul disconnection from a previous lifetime, and you have a karma or you have a tikkun with that individual, and you carry this baggage. So even if like in an intellectual way, it's not translated in this way because it's not logical, whatever is not logical, you can be almost certain that it is, obviously there has to be a spiritual explanation. And oftentimes when we're talking about a spiritual explanation, it has to do with the past life. So anyway, all these discussions, these like 5 words to do with this Habakkuk Navi, with this Habakkuk prophet. מקרה זה קשה ויש להסתכל בו. And so he used to basically resolve impossible missions with these connections, because when we're talking about miracle, we're not talking about like problem solving in the physical realm with technology, with a smart mind, or, you know, like with a physical tool. Oh my gosh, like you're like such a magician. Like yesterday or 2 days before, I had to deal again with GoDaddy. Yes, that's an endless story. And I spoke to this guy. The conversation was like maybe like 4 to 5 minutes, and he was able to resolve, you know, something that took me maybe days, you know, to deal with, like maybe like 6 or 7 different people that are working for GoDaddy, and they were not able to. And I'm speaking to this guy, and in like 5-6 minutes. So, and I'm telling him, this is the problem. This is what I'd like to resolve. He gets back to me and he says, oh, it's done. It's in your cart. I'm like, what? You're such a like miracle maker. And in our verbiage, you know, miracle maker is like somebody who is like a problem solver. That was something that was like such a problem, such a challenge, such a unresolvable situation, and somebody came and fixed it. This is, by the way, like, you know, the miracles that we're talking about is not that. Yes, it is, you know, a miracle compared to what I experienced before with the other agents, but it's not the miracles that we're talking when we're discussing the prophets. When we're discussing the prophets, when they create a miracle, is that there is somebody that dies and the prophet brings this person back to life. When somebody has an incurable disease and the person comes and prays for a day or for 2 hours and goes out of the room and the person is healed. Or the person is, or the prophet is praying for this person that has issues with bringing children, and overnight, and he's going to say, oh, the person is going to be okay. A week or 2 weeks later, the person is pregnant. Or a person that for a lifetime was looking for a soulmate and didn't have a chance, went to see this prophet, went to see this righteous person. After one meeting, a week, a month, or 6 months later, the person is married. Those are miracles, miracles that are illogical, miracles that are not humanly solved. It is not man-made. And when it is not man-made, and when it is not logical, and when it has to do with something that is, like all the doctors would say, it's impossible, you should start doing, you know, like your prayers and say goodbyes, and then the person is still alive. And then the person survives that, and the person lives another 30 years. You know, and we have stories like that, where people were told, you know, you should count the days because the A, B, and C, and they have very rational, medicinal, scientific explanation that were justified compared to their books, compared to the study cases. But when something illogical happens, what is the doctor saying? The doctor says it's a miracle, right? And so, by the way, going back to the whole topic of the doctors, I don't have anything against doctors, is that, you know, like when they have used the entire toolbox and knowledge and practice and help with other physicians, and they have no solution, what do they tell patients? The only thing that's left is to pray. So why not to begin with prayer? Now we can have different definition of what prayer means, and for each one of you, the word prayer can have a different relevance. But prayer is to pray to something that is beyond me, something that is beyond, above, however the word that you're going to use works just fine. beyond the human understanding. Call it God, call it light, call it the universe, call it people just call it whatever they want. But you got what I'm saying. ויש להסתכל בו מהו השינוי שכתוב תפילה לחבקוק הנביא, and so the prayer to the prophet Habakkuk, יותר מכל שאר נביאי העולם, is more than to any other, this word is not sticking, to any other prophet in existence. Meaning that the most powerful, if you are to pray to a prophet, the most powerful connection that we may have, according to this paragraph, is to the prophet Habakkuk. יותר מכל שאר נביאי העולם שלא כתוב בהם תפילה לישועה הוא הנביא, and so there are other, again, the word is not sticking, the prophet ישעיהו, לירמיהו, או לחזקיאל, או להושע, או לשאר נביאי העולם. So there are specific prayers that we do for each one of them, because each one of them is like a specialist. So imagine like you're going to see a surgeon of the brain, of the feet, of the hands, of the heart, of the colon, etc. So you have those prophets that each one of them has specialty, has a very specific power. But the one that is sort of like overseeing all of them, or let's just say, like above all of them, is that Habakkuk. ומשיב, אלא כך למדנו. And so we learned, אלישע זכה בעולם הזה, מה שלא זכה נביא אחר. And so it gives another example of another prophet, Elisha, that merited or earned something that no other prophet earned, חוץ ממשה, besides Moses. בוא וראה, מה כתוב, ויהי היום ויעבור אלישע אל שונם. And so he was traveling in a city called Shunam, ושם אישה, and there lived a great woman. מהו אישה גדולה? And so what is the definition of a great woman? אלא היא גדולה במעשים. She is great in her actions. So this is according to the Zohar, what makes a person great. What makes a person great is not how much this person has in their bank account or their title. It is in their actions. And when we talk about their actions, it's not to build the next rocket to Mars. It is how does it serve humanity, how it is improving people's lives. מהו אישה גדולה? So what is by definition a great woman? אלא היא גדולה במעשים, and so she is great by her actions, שכל בני הבית משתבחים בה. Every person should feel blessed by her actions, והיא עקרת הבית. ומשום שבעלה לא היה נמצא בבית, her husband wasn't present in the house, שהיה עיקר הבית, לא היה נזכר הוא אלא היא. And when he wasn't home, and there were visitors or guests in this house, the one that would be remembered is her rather than her husband. This is not to put one above each other. This is just, to signify or to indicate the greatness of this woman, and the Zohar is continuing to explain why she was this great. ועוד יש לפרש, and so there is more to interpret or to explain, ושם אישה גדולה, שהיא גדולה על כל שאר נשים שבעולם. She is greater than any other woman in the world, כי שאר נשי העולם, כשרואים אורח בבית, because most of women in the world, and again, we're talking about a text that was written 2,000 years ago, so don't take it personal. כי שאר נשי העולם, כשרואים אורח בבית, when a woman sees a guest in her house, מצטערות עליו, they feel aggravated or sad. Aggravated is the word. מצטערות עליו ורוחקות אותו מכל שכן להוציא עליו כסף. And so they make calculations. how much it's going to cost them. So imagine you have family, like your sibling, your brother or sister, and they have like 3 children. If you don't have children, so maybe it's not the same calculation. But imagine, I mean, there are people that have like 10 children. And so to have them come, let's say from London, and to come over for a month, it's not going to be cheap. So sure, they're going to save on the hotel. They're going to stay, even if they're going to stay like in every little corner or piece or inch of the house, a lot of money is going to be saved. But to entertain, to take them out, to go to the restaurant, to take them to a movie, to take them to Disneyland. Can you imagine? Like you take like a family of 2, it costs some money. You need to make some calculation and a budget. But when you have a family of 10 that come to your house, would you think about it twice? Would you? You don't have to answer me. I know that the way that my mind functions is that if I have somebody that's going to come and stay in my house for 10 days or for a month, and I know that this kind of a person is going to expect not to pay anything, I'm going to think about it twice, how much it's going to cost. Well, come on, be honest. You're not going to be thinking about it? Of course you're not going to, because you're on the level of Habakkuk and Elisha the prophet, right? And of this great woman, you're unconditional, right? So it's not going to cross your mind. You're a great host. You're a super host. So this is how I'm defining this woman, because she is a super host. And if you think about it, this is exactly how and what defined Abraham and Sarah as righteous. What is it that first defined them as righteous? Is that they were super hosts. They were looking for opportunities. They were chasing after people outside of their tent to come stay with them. Travelers that don't even have to stop by. They would drag them in to come and eat and drink and feast and sleep with no deadline. Stay as long as you wish. Imagine, we live in Los Angeles, there is a huge crisis of homeless. I cannot imagine myself for a second with 3 small children opening my door and calling up all the homeless of the street. Hey, come travelers, stay in my house. Here is my food, here is my drinks, here is my bed. And you can stay as long as you want. So it is very hard. It's like 2 worlds, 2 realms apart, right? Like where we are and where those people are. But this is what defined them as beyond human, beyond superhost. They were superhuman. Why? Because they cared more about other people than they cared for themselves. So if you think about one of the definition of what defines a righteous person, a righteous man or woman, is that they care more about other people's well-being than theirs. לפרש ושם אישה גדולה, שהיא גדולה על כל שאר נשים שבעולם, כי שאר נשי העולם, כשרואים, so all the people would do all sorts of calculations, אותו מכל שכן שלא הוציא עליו how much money it's going to cost, וזו שמחה באורח ומוציאה עליו כסף, כל שכן כיוון שראתה את אלישע, שמחה בו מאוד. And so when this woman saw Elisha, and very often a righteous man, it's crazy because I just, like with no connection, I spoke about the homeless, is that when she saw Elisha the prophet, she didn't see a prophet. Very often a prophet appears at your door, or Elijah the prophet appears at your door as a poor man, as a beggar. And he would ask for either bread or water, right? And so when she saw him, when she saw Elisha the prophet at her door, she didn't just welcome them. It gives me like the goosebumps. She didn't just welcome them. she was so ecstatic and happy. And she didn't know that he was a prophet. So it's like, imagine that you have like a royalty that is disguised, and he's testing to see who is like meritorious, like the prize for the most meritorious subject of the kingdom. And he's walking door by door, and you don't know that this person is doing that. And the winner is going to get $10 million, whatever. And so walks in. So imagine if this royalty does this test, who's going to succeed? He's going to dress as a homeless, and he's going to put like dirt and stinking stuff on his clothes, and he's going to knock on each door, and you're opening the door. So I'm suspecting that each one of you would open the door. וזו שמחה באורח, ומוציא עליו כסף, and you would open the door and you would be so happy for the opportunity. Thank you for coming to my house. Please, welcome, come in. By the way, rest assured that I'm not hinting at all to start opening your doors to strangers. Okay, that's not what I'm saying. The only thing that I'm saying right now is that we live in different times. Okay, what happened 3,400 years ago, 2,000 years ago is not what's going on today. But just the level of consciousness. If we can find in our heart to start behaving a tiny bit, 1%, more towards the well-being of others than the well-being of myself and my family. Not as a replacement, but in addition. To care more about the well-being of others than I already do for myself. To do for myself, like it's human nature. It's like second nature. To care for myself and for my children. To care for strangers, for others, less likely. So if I can do like one tiny bit, and I'm not giving you like a homework, at least once a day, do such and such. No, at least keep that in mind. Where is it that you could do like an anonymous, that nobody is going to be tracking? Nobody is going to take a video and it's going to burst the internet because you've done something incredible and you made sure that you were on camera. That's not what I'm talking about. There are people that do that, by the way. כיוון שראתה את אלישע, שמחה מאוד, and so she saw him and she was very happy, ועל כן כל השבת, כל השבח היא לאישה, כי אורח הבית של האישה הוא, משום זה כתוב, ושם האישה גדולה, שהיא גדולה על שאר האנשים. So this is what made her greater than the rest of women. It's because nobody in that time would have done the same thing. שואל במה ידע שהוא אישה, so what is it that hinted to her that he was a holy man? הוא משיב, אלא באורו החברים, שסדין לבן הנטילה במיטתו ולא ראתה בו קרי מעולם. Very interesting. גם לא עבר זבוב על שולחנו. So there are a lot of stories about righteous men. When they die, they do not decompose. So it means that after 1,000 years, according to the theory, you would open the grave and that person would be looking exactly the same as 1,000 years ago. But the question here is very specific. What is it that hinted to her? How did she know that he was a holy man? So after the whole story that she invited him and he stayed in, and by the way, it wasn't just him, according to what is being told, במה ידע שהוא איש קדוש ומשיב, so the answer is, אלא באורו החברים. So it's not just him, but also the people that he was traveling with. So imagine, when this guy was traveling, it wasn't just him as a guest that she welcomed as a king, she welcomed him and his companions. and she had him stay in a room and the rest of the companions in other rooms. But how did she know that he was a righteous man? It's going to be very specific, and maybe ladies, you're going to, I don't know, it's not just ladies, it's for everybody. So imagine that you sleep in your bed, and in the day after or whatnot, like as an idea, I'm just taking the example. The next day, you take the pillow of that person that slept in, and you smell the pillow. I mean, I don't know why you would do something like that, but anyway, in case you do, you would smell the pillow, and the pillow would have a smell. Would have a very distinct smell of the body of the person that slept in, right? But in addition, it's the Zohar is very specific, and the specific part that it gives is that it can happen that a man during the night has an incident, that can happen, and the fact that it happened, it's not just that an accident happened, but it can also denote like the level of consciousness of the individual. But speaking about the covering of the bed of that man, of that righteous, not only it was clean, but it smelled like heaven. It smelled like heaven, something that is out of this world. That's what's written. Gam lo avar zvuv al shulchano. And so, whatever was going on in this time, the Zohar finds it important to add that there was no fly on his table. So meaning, like you live like in a time where, like the windows are open and you're quite much like in nature, in the Middle East or wherever, and you have like all sorts of like flies and insects and whatever. And so imagine like you have like 5 tables in that room, and the flies would go on every single table, but would not touch this table. This table, it's like it had like an aura of protection, and flies would not get close. So this is what the Zohar says about answering. How did she know that he was a righteous man? And there are indications. There are indications, and again, this is why we're very careful not to teach things like palm and face reading, even though we do sometimes. Why is it that we are not keen to teach those things? Because we start teaching, about a nose shaped in this way, ears shaped in this way, amount of hair, the eyes and the nose, and people start looking around and judge, right? And it's not always the case, and we can always, be mistaking, and there can be like all sorts of things that we're not aware of. And so, but it does give us an indication, especially the smell. That when you study the tree of life and its connection, its correlation with a face, we learn that the eyes are chokhmah, the ears are binah, the nose is zir anpin, and the mouth is malchut. And so the nose is the gate between the physical and the spiritual realm. It is zir anpin. And zir anpin is the level of reality, of realm, where the soul comes in and comes out. And when we go to sleep and when we wake up, this is where the soul comes in and out. It is through the nose. And so this is why the smell is more than just a physical sense. It is a tremendous radar system where you can connect to things that are elevating or elevated, or things that are to keep your distance from. And so, this is why, bad smell is not necessarily a good thing, right? So this is why it's a good thing to be clean, to smell good, because it has not just like a cleanliness on itself, but also on a spiritual, energetical level, it is elevating. It is elevating to smell good ourselves, but also to constantly be around things that smell good. Okay, so this has no favorite mention of the French that like, like perfume and stuff. It's, I don't know why I'm thinking about that, because French people like a lot. And the whole cover up story, that they use, perfume to, to, how do we call this? Like something shower, or doesn't matter. You got the idea. There was like a moment of nonsense. So anyway, the nose is very important to connect to things that are elevating, or to disconnect from, smelling things that are not good. So this is why it's very important that your office, your house, your bedroom, the things where you spend the most time smells good. And it is also important that even the bathroom, smells good. That you have like natural things that are, I don't know if it's like a potpourri or like a, like a air freshener or whatever, because of that same reason, right? So, I mean, it's by extension, like light years between this woman experiencing heaven with a nose, but it is a good lesson for us. It is a good lesson for us to be around things that always smell good. Does it make sense? Yes? Because the smell connects us to our soul. Or through the smell, through the nose, we connect to our soul. And through our smell, we also connect to other souls. So through your nose, I mean, don't go and start, how is this person smelling? But a person that smells good, I'm sorry to say, it is an indication. A person that smells bad, and it can happen. The person went to run like a marathon, like 2-3 hours, and comes back and he's kind of smelly. Takes a shower, smells good. But if majority of the time this person smells good, it's great. But there are people that are just smelly. They're smelly. Again, no judgment whatsoever. There can be some people that have like a situation, like a medical thing, right? I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about people that do not take care of themselves. And so you're not here to judge who doesn't and who does take care of themselves, but it is another element for us, to say, if I'm going to eat too much sugar, it's not going to be good for me. If I'm going to eat more vegetables, it is good for me. Simple indications. And what the Zohar here is teaching us is about the smell, the power of smell. It is a power that elevates, or a power that takes us down. It has an effect. Any questions about that? No? Great. So there is another question that is related to what we spoke about. Dvarim elu kashim, those are like tough things that are being discussed, about like the night incident, or about like the smell of an individual. In tomar shelo ra'ata bokeri, so if you're saying that she didn't see any night incident, I mean, there are a lot of other men that don't have any night incident, so she'enam roim keri, so you don't see. So what is the difference between this man or another man, this righteous man, or all the rest of men that don't have this night incident? ואם תאמר שלא עבר זבוב על שולחנו, למה כתוב הנה בה ידעתי וכי היא ידעה ולא אחר. There are other people, I mean, when I'm going to eat dinner soon. It's only, 4:42 here. I'm going to eat dinner soon. There are no flies in here. I mean, in the summer, there is a little bit of flies. We just close the windows. We make sure that we don't leave food outside, and, there are no flies. If we leave outside the food, it's drawing them. So, like it's everywhere, right? So if you don't see any flies, what's the difference between not seeing flies over my dining table and, and this man that is counted as a righteous man? הרי כל אלו שראו אותו, אוכל על שולחנו הם יודעים כמוה. And so here we're talking about not just the sight, but we're talking about the intuition of this woman that said that she just knew. And it also said about all the rest of people that were in that inn, that were in that place where people were coming to stay. They all knew how special this man was. It reminds me, a story about the Rav, that the Rav was traveling places to either, for a lecture or for visiting a certain site or meeting a person or whatnot, and was traveling the world. And that it be like in an airport or that it be like in a public place, people would come to the Rav who was dressed as a civilian. Basically, there was like the dress code of the rabbi when he was like in the center, right, like praying and do whatever. And then when he was going outside, you wouldn't see the Rav like in the Rav's, however he was dressed, but you would see him as just any other person with a long beard and a hat. People would walk to the Rav and ask the Rav to give them a blessing. I know that you're a very special person. Please give me a blessing. And the Rav never refused the blessing. I traveled the world, many places, many countries. I don't remember once somebody come to me and say, hey, Yehuda, or you, special person, can you give me a blessing? That would be interesting. I don't even know what I would do. But what I'm saying is that people would walk the street without, for those who knew the Rav, you would walk to the Rav and ask for a blessing. But if you didn't know the Rav, why would you walk to somebody who looks like a religious man and ask for a blessing? Why? And we're not talking about people that are of Jewish religion. We're talking about just, the Rav was going to Morocco and Muslims were going to him and asking for a blessing. Like, it didn't make sense. And so when a person emanates that light that we're talking about, you don't need an explanation. You just know it. Something very special about this prayer. I can't put it into words. Something very special. And I'm sure that it happened to you at least once. It doesn't have to be like a righteous man. There are just people that are just very special. And we need to wish, to pray that we'd be drawn, or we'd be drawing those situations where we're meeting those special people, because there aren't many. In their lifetimes, there weren't that many. But they are. In every generation there are. And the Zohar explains that in every generation, there are 36 righteous. And those 36 righteous is what sustains the world from complete chaos. It is the light that they emanate. So what the Zohar here is telling us, maybe we're not going to be one of the 36. By the way, where is the 36 coming from? And the Zohar is teaching us that about the sin of Adam. Prior to the sin of Adam, there is an aspect of Adam that escaped him. A spiritual level of Adam that escaped him, knowing that he's about to do the sin, so that it wouldn't be corrupted by the light or by the darkness of the sin. And that aspect of him are 36 sparks that are uncorrupted by the sin of Adam. And that is what we call the Or HaGanuz, the concealed light. And the Or HaGanuz is revealed throughout the year calendar in a few opportunities where we can connect to this Or HaGanuz, not only through cosmic openings, some of it is Hanukkah and a couple of others, reading the Zohar, but also the words escape me, so just give me 1 second. The Or HaGanuz, the Zohar, and the 36, yes. And so in every generation, there are 36 souls that incarnate, and they incarnate the Or HaGanuz. So the light is not only existing in its potential form for us to connect in a holiday or in prayer, but they're also incarnated in 36 individuals in every generation. And we should strive, we should pray for that aspect, for us to be drawn to these people, or for those people to have the merit to meet those people so that we can know like she did. She didn't have the need of anybody come and say, oh, welcome, that special individual. She just knew. And when you're going to meet that very special person, you'll just know. Okay. Thank you very much. Again, I spoke 20 minutes too long, so sorry about that. Thank you very much for joining us. And
thank you, Yehuda. Don't apologize. It's beautiful.
yeah, thank you.
Wow.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll meet again next week.
Thank you.
A bientôt.
A bientôt. Bye-bye.